The airlock screamed as the Kryn warship tore through the station's outer hull. Debris exploded inward. Bodies tumbled into the void. Alarms shrieked through corridors already choked with smoke and blood. Lieutenant Kyle Morrison sprinted through the chaos, boots pounding against twisted metal. His rifle hung useless at his side. 3 rounds left. Might as well be empty. The evacuation pods were gone. Every single one. He'd watched the last one launch 2 minutes ago, crammed with civilians who looked at him like he was already dead. Maybe he was. A hull breach opened 10 meters ahead. The suction yanked equipment, supplies, and one screaming technician toward the darkness. Kyle slammed his fist against the emergency seal. Blast doors dropped just in time. He turned down a service corridor. Quieter here. The kind of quiet that meant everyone who could run had already run. That's when he heard it. A sound. Wet, ragged. Something breathing where nothing should be breathing. Kyle raised his rifle and moved forward. His helmet light cut through the smoke. The beam settled on a crumpled shape in the corner, not human. Kryn. His finger tensed on the trigger. 3 rounds. He could make them count. But the alien didn't move, didn't lunge, didn't even look at him. She was small, smaller than any Kryn he'd seen in combat. Her exoskeleton was cracked in a dozen places, leaking that bioluminescent fluid they used for blood. One of her 4 arms hung at an impossible angle. Her respirator mask was shattered. She was dying? Every instinct screamed at him to pull the trigger. The Kryn had glassed Earth's colonies, burned stations just like this one across 6 systems, killed millions without hesitation or mercy. This was the enemy. But her eyes met his. And in that moment, Kyle saw something he'd never expected to see in a Kryn. Fear, pain, and something else. Pleading. She didn't speak. Couldn't speak, but her remaining hand moved slowly, carefully, toward a device on her belt. Not a weapon, a data core. She pulled it free with trembling fingers and held it toward him. Kyle's rifle didn't waver. What is that? She pushed it closer. Her chest rattled with each breath. The light in her blood was fading. He could shoot her, should shoot her. Every regulation, every briefing, every memorial service for fallen humans told him to end this creature without a second thought. Instead, Kyle lowered his rifle. He stepped forward and took the data core from her hand. Her eyes closed. Her breathing slowed. And Kyle Morrison made a choice that would echo across every star in the galaxy. He knelt beside her, pulled the emergency medical kit from his belt, and began trying to save the life of his species' greatest enemy. The station shuddered again. More hull breaches, more screaming metal. Time was running out, but Kyle didn't stop. Kyle's hands moved on instinct. The foam sealant hissed as he sprayed it across the worst cracks in her exoskeleton. Wrong species, wrong biology. He had no idea if this would even work. The Kryn's breathing hitched, stuttered. Her bioluminescent blood stopped flowing, but the light was almost gone. "Come on," Kyle muttered. "Don't you die on me." He grabbed the oxygen converter from his kit, designed for humans. He pressed it against the shattered remains of her respirator anyway, and cranked the settings to maximum. Her chest expanded once, twice. The light in her blood flickered brighter. The station lurched violently. Gravity cut out for 3 seconds before emergency systems kicked back in. Kyle crashed against the wall. The Kryn clutched in his arms. She weighed almost nothing. Too light. Combat Kryn were dense, heavily armored. This one felt hollow. Footsteps, heavy, multiple. Kyle spun, rifle up. 3 rounds. 4 Kryn warriors rounded the corner, weapons raised. Full combat exoskeletons, plasma rifles charged and ready. Their faceplates gleamed in the emergency lighting. They saw him, saw the small Kryn in his arms. and they froze. The lead warrior's rifle dipped slightly. He made a sound, a chittering series of clicks that Kyle's translator struggled to process. The device in his ear crackled and spat out fragments. Impossible. The science cast, "She lives." The other three warriors started chittering rapidly, their weapons lowered further. Kyle's rifle stayed up. "Back off!" The lead warrior's head tilted. The translator caught more this time. "Human, you saved her. Why? Does it matter?" Kyle's finger rested on the trigger. 3 rounds, 4 targets. The math didn't work. It matters. The warrior took 1 step forward. Slow, deliberate. "She is Alara, last of the understanding caste. We thought her dead when your species bombed the research station at Kelvin 3. Kyle's blood went cold. "We didn't bomb Kelvin 3. Your fleet did. Killed 5,000 colonists. Lies." But the warrior's voice crackled with something other than certainty. The small Kryn Alara stirred in Kyle's arms. Her remaining good hand moved weakly, gesturing toward the data core now clipped to Kyle's belt. All 4 warriors saw it. Their weapons snapped back up in unison. "The data core," the lead warrior said. "You will surrender it now? Not a chance. That core contains information that will end this war. It belongs to the Kryn Collective. She gave it to me." Kyle shifted his weight, ready to move. "That makes it mine." The warrior's rifle hummed as the plasma chamber charged to full. "You do not understand what you hold, human. That data will destroy everything your species believes about this conflict. Then I guess I should take a look at it. You will die first." Ilara's hand suddenly gripped Kyle's arm. Weak, desperate, she made a sound, a high-pitched keening that cut through the tension like a blade. The warriors hesitated. She spoke. Her voice was barely a whisper, processed through the failing translator. "Not his fault, not their fault. We were lied to. Both sides. The core shows truth." "Silence, science cast." The lead warrior's rifle didn't waver. "You are compromised, broken. Your words mean nothing." "My words mean everything." Alara's voice strengthened slightly. "Because I paid for them with my life's work. I found the signal source. I traced the commands. I know who really started this war." The corridor went silent, except for the distant groan of failing station superstructure. Kyle's mind raced. A third party, someone playing both sides. It made a sick kind of sense. The attacks always seemed perfectly timed to destroy peace talks. The intelligence always just good enough to keep both sides bleeding. "Lower your weapons," Kyle said quietly, "or we all die here and the truth dies with us." The human speaks wisdom. A new voice, female. One of the other warriors stepped forward. "If the science cast speaks truth, we are all betrayed. The data must be verified." "Verified by whom?" The lead warrior spun toward her. "By humans? By our enemies? By anyone who can read it?" Kyle met the warrior's eyes through the faceplate. "Because if someone's been playing us both, I want to know who, and I want to make them pay." The lead warrior's rifle trembled. Combat conditioning against logic. Hatred against curiosity. Then the station's main reactor alarm began to wail. 3 minutes to core breach." The warrior lowered his weapon. "We leave. Now. All of us. Or none of us." Kyle looked down at Alara. She nodded weakly. "There's an emergency shuttle in Bay 7, Kyle said. "Can you make it? Can you trust us not to kill you once we're aboard?" Kyle smiled grimly. "Can you trust me not to space this data core the second things go wrong?" The warrior made a sound that might have been a laugh. "I am Varak, and this day has become very strange. Kyle Morrison, and you have no idea. They ran together through the dying station. Human and Kryn. Enemies and maybe something else. Behind them, The reactor countdown hit 2 minutes. The shuttle bay was a graveyard of twisted metal and shattered glass. Emergency lights flickered across debris fields where ships used to dock. Bay 7 was at the far end, past 3 hull breaches sealed with emergency force fields that wouldn't hold much longer. Kyle's legs burned as he sprinted ahead, Alara still cradled against his chest. Varak and his team moved faster, their powerful legs eating up distance with mechanical efficiency. But they stayed close, watching, waiting. The trust was paper thin. 90 seconds to core breach. They reached Bay 7. The shuttle sat intact in its cradle, a small civilian transport with enough seats for maybe 20 people. Kyle slammed his hand against the access panel. It blinked red. Locked, he growled. Varak pushed past him and pressed his own interface against the panel. Kryn technology. Different frequencies. The panel sparked and died completely. Your security system just fried the controls, Kyle said. Your security system rejected my override. Varak shot back. Alara stirred. Her hand moved weakly toward the panel. She made a soft clicking sound. The female warrior, whose translator identified her as Senna, knelt beside them. The science cast has universal bypass codes. Let her try. Kyle shifted Alara closer to the panel. Her fingers, 3 on her remaining good hand, danced across the surface in a pattern too complex for him to follow. The panel flickered, died, flickered again. 60 seconds. It's not working, one of the other warriors said. His name tag read, Corin. We should find another bay. There is no other bay, Kyle said. This is the only shuttle left on this level, and we don't have time to reach the upper decks. Then we die here. The 4th warrior, Thex, raised his weapon slightly. Perhaps the science cast's death will at least serve the collective. Stand down, Thex. Varak's voice carried command weight. We follow this through. The panel suddenly flashed green. The shuttle door hissed open. Alara slumped in Kyle's arms, unconscious. Whatever she'd done had taken the last of her strength. Inside, now, Kyle ran up the ramp. The Kryn followed. The shuttle interior was standard civilian configuration. Rows of seats designed for human anatomy. The Kryn looked at them with obvious discomfort. Strap in however you can, Kyle said, heading for the cockpit. This is going to be rough. 40 seconds. He dropped into the pilot's seat, and his hands flew across controls. Pre-flight checks scrolled past. Engine status green. Fuel cells charged. Docking clamps still engaged. Emergency release isn't responding, Kyle called back. Varek appeared in the cockpit doorway, too large for the human-sized space. The station's automated systems are failing. Manual override required. Where? External access port. Starboard side of the cradle. Kyle looked at the countdown. 30 seconds. There's no time. Then, one of us goes outside and releases them manually. They stared at each other, human and Kryn. The math was simple. Whoever went outside wouldn't make it back before the core breached. Senna pushed past Varak into the cockpit. Senna pushed past Varak into the... I will go. No. Varak blocked her path. You have hatchlings waiting in the fleet. I go. Your command is needed more than mine. This is not a debate. Kyle stood. Neither of you go. I go. Human, you cannot. I can and I will. This is my station. My people died here. If someone's dying to get us off this wreck, it's going to be me. Alara's voice, weak but clear, came from the passenger cabin. No one dies. They turned. She was standing, barely, supported by Corin and Thex. She held up a small device Kyle hadn't seen before. Remote release module, she whispered. All science vessels carry them. For emergency undocking procedures. She pressed a button. The shuttle lurched as the docking clamps released. 20 seconds. Kyle dove back into the pilot's seat and fired the engines. The shuttle shot forward out of the bay just as the force field behind them collapsed. Atmosphere screamed out into space, pushing them faster. The station filled the rear view screen. Massive. Dying. Sections were already venting plasma and debris. 10 seconds. Kyle pushed the throttle to maximum. The shuttle civilian engines whined in protest but responded. Distance opened between them and the station. 5 seconds. Brace for shock wave, Kyle said. The reactor went critical. The explosion turned night into day. The blast wave hit them like a hammer. The shuttle spun wildly, alarms screaming. Kyle fought the controls, compensating for the rotation, killing the spin degree by degree. Behind them, the station that had been humanity's gateway to the outer reach, scattered into a billion burning fragments. Silence filled the cockpit. Kyle's hands shook on the controls. He steadied the shuttle on a heading away from the debris field and engaged autopilot. When he turned around, all 4 Kryn warriors were staring at him. "You saved us," Senna said quietly. "All of us." "Why?" Kyle looked past them, to where Alara sat slumped in a passenger seat, still breathing, still alive because he'd made an impossible choice in a smoke-filled corridor. "Because maybe," he said slowly, "we've all been saving the wrong people and killing the wrong enemies." Barak's faceplate retracted, revealing features Kyle had only seen in combat footage. Sharp, angular, eyes that held intelligence and something that looked almost like respect. "The data core," Barak said. "We need to see what she died to protect." "She's not dead yet," Kyle said. "And yeah, we do." He pulled the core from his belt and held it up. Such a small thing, barely larger than his palm. But if Alara was right, it contained the truth about who had turned 2 species into genocidal enemies. Kyle plugged it into the shuttle's computer system. The screen flickered to life, and what they saw in the next 5 minutes changed everything they thought they knew about the war, about each other, and about the enemy that had been hiding in plain sight all along. The data unfolded across the screen in layers. Communications logs, command structures, attack vectors, all time-stamped, all verified with encryption keys that couldn't be faked. Kyle's stomach turned to ice as he read. The Kelvin 3 massacre, the one humanity blamed on the Kryn. The data showed Kryn ships in the system, but the actual weapons fire came from somewhere else. Signatures matched neither human nor Kryn technology. The destruction of Kryn colony world Thessar Prime, blamed on human aggression. The attack patterns were wrong, too precise, too coordinated. Not human tactics at all. 17 major incidents over 3 years. Every single one staged to look like the other side had pulled the trigger. "This is impossible," Thex hissed. "Our intelligence confirmed human involvement in every attack. Our intelligence confirmed the same about you," Kyle said. His voice sounded distant to his own ears. "Which means someone fed us both exactly what we needed to hear." Varric leaned closer to the screen. "Run the weapons signature analysis again. Focus on the unknown energy type." Kyle's fingers moved across the controls. The computer processed the request. New data cascaded across the display. Then a match appeared. "Centauri pattern plasma arrays." Kyle read aloud. "But that's not possible." The Centauri Concordat stayed neutral. They refused to take sides. They refused openly. Senna said, "But what if neutrality was the perfect cover?" Alara stirred in her seat. Her breathing had stabilized, but she still looked half dead. "Not just Centauri," she whispered. "Look deeper. Look at the logistics chains." Kyle drilled down into the supply records, military hardware, fleet movements, resource allocations. The pattern emerged slowly. Then all at once, Centauri corporations had sold weapons to both sides. But the sales record showed something else. Identical weapons systems, identical targeting computers, all designed to be compatible with a single command override. They weren't just selling us weapons, Kyle said. They were building a control network. They could fire our own ships remotely and blame it on the other side. Barak's voice carried a cold fury Kyle had never heard before. How many of our warriors died believing they fought honorably? How many of our people died thinking we were defending ourselves? Kyle's hands clenched into fists. This whole war is a lie, a business venture. They turned us into their product. Corin moved suddenly, grabbing the data core. We must bring this to the collective, to the high command. They must know. Your high command won't believe a human, Kyle said, and mine won't believe a Kryn. They'll call it enemy propaganda. Then what do we do? Senna asked. Elara raised one shaking hand. Broadcast, wide spectrum, every ship, every station, both fleets. Release everything. Let the soldiers see. Let them choose. That's treason, Thex said flatly. For both our species will be executed. Or we'll end a war. Kyle pulled the data core from Corin's grip and held it up. Right now, there are human and Kryn fleets heading for a major engagement at the Helix Nebula. 3 days from now, they'll kill each other by the thousands, unless we stop them. Varak's eyes narrowed. The shuttle's communications array is too weak. We need a relay station or a ship with proper broadcasting power. Kyle checked the navigation display. There's a Centauri trade hub 4 hours from here. Station Prosperity. Major communications infrastructure. Heavily guarded, Varak said. And if the Centauri realize what we know, they'll kill us before we transmit a single byte. Then we don't give them the chance to realize. Kyle plotted a course. We dock like normal traffic. Get to the communications center. Lock it down, and broadcast everything before they can stop us. A suicide mission. A necessary mission. Kyle met Varak's eyes. You got a better idea? Silence filled the shuttle. Then Elara spoke, her voice stronger now. I spent my life searching for truth. I found it, but truth means nothing if it stays hidden. We broadcast. We show them all what was done to us, and we let humanity and Kryn decide together what happens next. Senna nodded slowly. The science cast speaks wisdom. Thex crossed his arms. I still think we're all going to die. Probably, Kyle agreed, but at least we'll die doing something that matters. Varak extended one clawed hand toward Kyle, a gesture from the combat briefings, a warrior's acknowledgement. Kyle gripped it, human flesh against Kryn chitin. We do this together, Varak said, one species helping another. Show the galaxy what cooperation looks like. And if we fail? Corin asked. Kyle smiled grimly. Then we make sure our failure is so spectacular that everyone notices anyway. He engaged the engines and set course for Station Prosperity. The shuttle accelerated smoothly through the void. Behind them, the debris field from the destroyed station glittered like scattered stars. Ahead, a Centauri trade hub gleamed against the darkness. Profit built from blood, a monument to a lie that had killed millions. 4 hours until they arrived. 4 hours to plan an infiltration that would either end a war or get them all killed. Kyle started running scenarios. Varak began tactical assessments. Senna checked their weapons inventory, while Corin and Thex tended to Elara's injuries with supplies from the shuttle's medical kit. Enemies working together, the galaxy wasn't ready for what was coming. But ready or not, Kyle Morrison and his unlikely allies were about to force the truth into the light, and once that light was shining, there would be no putting it back. Station Prosperity loomed ahead like a jewel of commerce and lies. 30 kilometers of rotating habitat rings, docking spires, and communication arrays that could reach every corner of known space. Centauri flags hung from every surface. Neutral, peaceful, profitable. Kyle killed the shuttle's transponder signature and switched to a fake registry Alara had coded into their systems. On paper, they were now a medical transport carrying plague victims to quarantine, the kind of ship other vessels gave a wide berth. Docking request approved for Bay 42, the station's automated system announced. Medical protocols in effect. Quarantine teams will meet you on arrival. Copy that, Kyle replied, keeping his voice flat and professional. Varak crouched beside the pilot seat, his bulk hidden from the visual sensors. Quarantine teams means armed security, minimum 6 guards plus medical staff. Can you handle 6? In close quarters? Easily, but not quietly, Kyle thought fast. We don't need quiet. We need chaos. Senna, how many smoke grenades do we have? 3, plus 2 flashbangs from the emergency kit. That'll work. We dock, deploy smoke, take the quarantine team down fast, and seal the bay. Gives us maybe 10 minutes before station security realizes something's wrong. 10 minutes to cross 3 kilometers of station interior and seize a communications hub protected by Centauri military contractors. Thex shook his head. Impossible. Alara pulled herself upright in her seat. She'd regained some color, though she still moved, like every motion hurt. Not impossible. I worked on Centauri stations during the peace years. I know the maintenance tunnels. Direct route to the central hub. Cuts the distance by half. Maintenance tunnels will be locked down, Corrin said. Not to ScienceCast override codes. Alara held up the device she'd used to unlock the shuttle. Centauri bought our technology, never changed the master access protocols. Kyle guided the shuttle into the docking approach. Bay 42 opened ahead, a yawning metal mouth. Everyone clear on the plan? We hit fast, move fast, don't stop for anything. And once we reach the communications hub, Varak asked, I'll handle the broadcast. You handle anyone who tries to stop me. The shuttle settled onto the docking pad with a gentle thud. Through the cockpit window, Kyle counted 8 figures in hazmat suits waiting outside. More than expected. 8 targets, he said quietly. I count 9, Varak corrected. 1 behind the equipment locker. Sniper position. Kyle's blood went cold. They know, or they suspect. Senna moved to the airlock. Grenades ready. Either way, we're committed. The external communication panel lit up. A Centauri face appeared. Smooth features. 2 perfect smile. Eyes that held calculation instead of warmth. Medical transport, please open your airlock for inspection. Kyle reached for the control. Varak's hand caught his wrist. The moment that door opens, they'll fire. This is an execution, not an inspection. Then we make them regret it. Kyle yanked his hand free and slammed the airlock release. The door hissed open. Senna threw all 3 smoke grenades in one motion. The bay erupted in thick gray clouds. Weapons fire sparked through the smoke. Energy bolts punched through the shuttle's hull. Alarms screamed. Varak burst through the smoke like a demon from human mythology. His plasma rifle spoke twice. 2 hazmat-suited figures dropped. He moved with terrifying speed, closing the distance to a 3rd guard before the Centauri could adjust his aim. The rifle butt caught the guard across the faceplate. The helmet shattered. Kyle followed, his own weapon up and firing. Training took over. Center mass, controlled bursts. A Centauri went down, clutching his chest. Thex and Corrin emerged from opposite sides of the shuttle, catching the remaining guards in a crossfire. Flashbangs detonated. The sniper's position lit up with muzzle flash, but the shot went wide, his vision compromised. Senna scaled the equipment locker in one smooth motion and drove her blade through the sniper's throat before he could fire again. 15 seconds from airlock open to all targets down. Move, Varak commanded. They ran for the maintenance access, leaving the dead behind. Ilara stumbled and Kyle caught her, half carrying her forward. She directed them with sharp clicks, her translator converting them to directions. Left down 3 levels through the ventilation junction. Alarms began wailing across the station. Lockdown protocols engaged. Blast doors started dropping throughout the facility. They reached the maintenance tunnel just as the nearest door slammed shut behind them. The tunnel was narrow, lit by emergency strips, barely wide enough for the Kryn warriors to fit. How far? Kyle asked. 800 meters, Ilara gasped. But the hub will be locked down, reinforced, designed to withstand assault. Good thing we're not assaulting from outside. Kyle checked his rifle. 2 magazines left. We're already inside their security perimeter. They moved through the tunnels at a dead run. Behind them, the sounds of station security mobilizing echoed through the walls, shouted orders, running feet. The whine of charging weapons. The tunnel opened into a junction chamber. Multiple paths branched off in different directions. Ilara pointed to the rightmost passage. That one, 200 meters to the hub access point. Barak held up a fist. Everyone stopped. Contact ahead, he said quietly. 4 signatures. Heavy weapons. They're waiting for us. They predicted our route, Senna said. Or someone talked. Thex's weapon swung toward Ilara. Kyle stepped between them. Stand down. She's the reason we're still alive. She's also Kryn's science cast. Their intelligence networks are extensive. If she wanted us dead, she had a dozen chances. Kyle's voice went hard. You want to shoot someone? Shoot the Centauri who are actually trying to kill us. Barak pushed Thex's weapon down. Kyle is right. Focus on the mission. Corin, can you flank them through the ventilation system? Too narrow for Kryn physiology, but a human could fit. All eyes turned to Kyle. He looked at the ventilation grate above them, barely 40 centimeters wide. It would be tight. It would be dark, and he'd be alone against 4 armed targets. Give me 2 minutes, Kyle said. Then hit them from the front. I'll come from above. He didn't wait for agreement. He jumped, caught the grate, and pulled himself up into the ventilation shaft. The metal was cold against his hands. The space was claustrophobic, but he moved forward anyway, crawling through the darkness toward the enemy that wanted him dead, toward the truth that would set 2 species free, or die trying. Kyle crawled through absolute darkness. The ventilation shaft was never meant for people. Sharp edges bit into his elbows. His breathing sounded impossibly loud in the confined space. Ahead, light leaked through another grate. Voices filtered up. Centauri, confident, casual. They'll never make it past this position. 4 targets in a corridor. Basic kill zone. Assuming they're stupid enough to come this way. Where else would they go? We control all the other routes. Kyle reached the grate and peered down. 4 Centauri soldiers in full combat gear, energy rifles, flash suppressors, professional stance and spacing, not rent-a-cops. Real military. His hand found the great release, old maintenance access, designed to open from inside in case someone got stuck. Below, Varak's voice echoed down the corridor, loud, deliberate, buying time. Centauri forces, we are not your enemy. Stand aside. Laughter from the soldiers below. You became our enemy the moment you discovered the truth. Should have stayed ignorant. Should have kept killing each other. Kyle gripped his rifle, positioned himself above the grate, controlled his breathing. Last chance. Varak called. Walk away. Make us. Kyle kicked the grate. It fell. He dropped with it, firing before he hit the ground. The first soldier went down with 2 rounds center mass. Kyle rolled, came up shooting. The second soldier turned too slow. 3 rounds. Down. The third soldier got his weapon up, but Barak's plasma bolt took him through the chest. The fourth soldier was fast, trained. His rifle swung toward Kyle. Senna's blade punched through his spine from behind. Silence, except for heavy breathing. "Clear," Kyle said. They moved past the bodies without hesitation. The communications hub entrance was just ahead. A massive reinforced door, biometric locks, armed with internal defenses. Ilara approached it, her hands moving across the interface. "This will take time. The security here is layered." "How much time?" Kyle asked. 3 minutes, maybe 4. An explosion rocked the station. Somewhere distant, another followed. Then another. "They're venting sections," Corrin said, "trying to flush us out, or trap us here." Varak checked the corridor behind them. "We're exposed." Elara's fingers never stopped moving. "Almost there. The encryption is adaptive, but I can predict the pattern shifts. More explosions! Closer now." The floor shook. Then the door ahead slid open. The communications hub was enormous. Banks of equipment rising 3 stories high. Holographic displays showing every transmission route in this sector of space. Power enough to broadcast to 1,000 systems simultaneously. And standing in the center of it all, surrounded by 20 armed guards, was a Centauri in corporate executive attire. "I am Director Salvin," he said calmly, "and you've made a terrible mistake." Kyle raised his rifle. Varak and the others fanned out, weapons ready. The math was bad. 20 against 6. "The only mistake," Kyle said, "was thinking you could get away with this." Salvin smiled. "Get away with what? Providing weapons to willing buyers? Facilitating trade? Everything we did was legal. Murder isn't legal. We never pulled a trigger. You did. Both species, so eager to hate each other, we simply gave you the tools and the motivation." He gestured at the guards. "Kill them quietly." The guards raised their weapons. Elara stepped forward. "Data core held high. Before you do, you should know this core has a dead man switch. My vital signs stop. It broadcasts everything automatically to every news network in range." The guards hesitated. Salvan's smile faded. "You're bluffing, am I?" Elara's voice was steady despite her injuries. "Science casts don't bluff. We calculate. And I calculated you'd try to kill us. So I took precautions." Kyle saw it then. The slight tremor in Salvin's expression. The first crack in his certainty. "You want to test it?" Kyle asked. "Go ahead. Shoot. See what happens when every soldier in 2 fleets learns they've been manipulated. See how long Centauri Concordat survives when humanity and Kryn both want your blood." Salvin's hand moved to a communication device. "I have ships, resources. I'll destroy the evidence. Destroy you." Too late. Elara plugged the data core into the nearest terminal. "I'm not waiting for you to decide." Her fingers flew across the controls. "Stop her!" Salvan screamed. The guards opened fire. Energy bolts filled the air. Kyle dove behind a console, returning fire. Varak roared and charged forward, his armor absorbing shots that would have killed a human. Senna and Thex moved like shadows, blades finding gaps in guard armor. Karin grabbed Ilara and pulled her behind cover, just as a bolt scorched the air where she'd been standing. But her hands kept working. The transmission began. Every screen in the hub lit up. The data unfolded across 1,000 channels, attack records, and financial transactions, command overrides, everything. And it wasn't just broadcasting to military channels. It was broadcasting everywhere. Civilian networks, news feeds, public communications, the truth spreading like wildfire across the galaxy. Salvin's face went white. No, no. He grabbed a rifle from a dead guard and aimed it at the terminal. Kyle was faster. One shot, clean. Center mass. Salvin dropped. The firing stopped. The remaining guards looked at each other, at the screens showing their employers' crimes broadcast to billions, at the human and Kryn who'd fought together. One by one, they lowered their weapons. "It's over," Barak said quietly. Kyle looked at the screens. Already responses were flooding in. Human commanders demanding explanations, Kryn fleet leaders calling for verification. But underneath it all, a common thread: shock, anger, and slowly understanding. Ilara slumped against the terminal, exhausted. The fleets at Helix Nebula are receiving the data now. They'll stand down. They have to. Some won't believe it, Senna said. Some will. Kyle watched the incoming transmissions multiply, and those who believe will convince the others. Truth has momentum. Barak placed a hand on Kyle's shoulder. You started this. One human who chose mercy over hatred. You continued it. For Kryn, who chose to trust. And together, Ilara whispered, "We changed everything." The station shuddered again, but this time from docking clamps engaging. Ships arriving, both human and Kryn, coming to investigate, coming to verify, coming to decide what happens next. Kyle looked at his unlikely allies, people he'd been taught to kill, people who'd been taught to kill him. Now they were something else entirely, proof that the galaxy didn't have to be what others designed it to be. One choice in a smoke-filled corridor had led to this moment. One act of mercy had shattered a lie that killed millions. And as Kyle Morrison stood in that communications hub, surrounded by former enemies who'd become something far more important, he understood the real power of humanity. Not weapons, not hate. The refusal to accept what we're told is inevitable. The courage to choose a different path. The strength to